I would like to give a special thank you to the Community Advisory Group Chair, Harvey Ferdman, and your team.
There you go. That's the EPA administrator yesterday when announcing the results of their final conclusion of the Lake Landfill, calling out our next guest. Congratulations, Harvey Ferdman.
Well, thank you, McGraw. I really appreciate that a whole lot.
It was really nice. So what did they say yesterday?
Well, I'll tell you, it's been a busy, actually, week for the landfill. There's two landfills over there. There's the Bridgeton landfill and the Westlake landfill, and those are they're connected to each other. There's no space in between them. And last week, the Department of Health and DHSS, Department of Health and Senior Services from the state of Missouri, released a report on whether or not the air around the landfill is okay to breathe, and if we have some time, we can talk about that. And then yesterday, Administrator Pruitt signed it's called the Record of Decision, and that's for the radioactive portion of the landfill. And they have decided that they're going to remove 70% of the radioactive material by radioactive content. So it's about 30% of the volume of the radioactive material, and it's 70% of the actual radiation generating materials. So that's good news for the community. We originally EPA wanted to just cover the whole thing up and tell us to look the other way, no problem here, move on. And that was in 2008. So this battle's been going on for some 10 years. That just putting a cover on it and leaving it there was not the right thing for the long-term safety and short-term safety of the community. So it's a big win.
Well, but hold on a second. So if they're going to take out some of the nuclear waste, what are they going to do with the rest of the nuclear waste?
That's a really good question, and I'm one of the people that's really concerned about what's left behind. What's left behind is going to be the stuff that's kind of deep and a little harder to get, or a lot harder to get. It's going to be very closely monitored, and that was one of the things that we emphasized with them while they were developing their plan is they had to show us that anything that was going to be left behind in their plan had to have good long-term monitoring and emergency plans in place should another landfill fire start in the vicinity of the stuff that's left behind, which is possible. Earthquakes, floods, all the different perils. But the big thing is potentially contact with the groundwater. And honestly, they're still investigating that portion of it, whether or not at the moment it's in the groundwater or not, and what to do about that. And that's a whole separate investigation that's going to take a couple of years to sort out.
It seems to me like it's half a victory because, as you've taught us, capping doesn't do anything. You need to entomb it to make sure it's safe. And so you're going to monitor if the nuclear waste gets into the water. Okay, now we can fix it. Well, at some point, right? If you're going to get 70% of it, why not get all of it and just be done with it?
Yeah, it's somewhat of a safety issue as well. It's how much risk do you want to take now to prevent risk in the future? This material that they're removing is generally within the first 20 feet, so it's not terribly deep. Some of the other material that they're leaving behind is 90 feet deep.
Which seems to me like that is easier to get to the.
That seems there's a lot more risk to going after it. It's a lot more complicated, and again, the main threat that the deeper stuff poses is the threat of a future fire. Which today they're monitoring it much better than in the past. I don't think that you're going to see a separate new fire start in that landfill ever because of the lessons they learned from the one that's going on there now.
Yeah,
and then contact with the groundwater, and again, that's a whole separate investigation, which may result in them deciding to go back in and dig it up. It just depends.
Yeah. So, in terms of 1 to 10, how happy is the community? How happy are you with this ruling?
Well, I've been one of the real cautious people on making that kind of assessment. I'd say right now, without reading every detail of a couple of hundred pages of documents, and I'm going to read them.
Right.
I'm pretty much in that 6 to 8 right now, which is really good. I went into the announcement meeting yesterday morning at about 3. So for me to go up that high is actually pretty darn good. I actually left smiling.
Oh, good. All right. And then quickly, I have about a minute left. There was something that came out from the state saying that at one point the air was toxic around the dump.
Yeah, that's the DHSS study, which is they only addressed the fire portion of it. They didn't talk about the radioactivity at all. And yes, anyone who has on any kind of a persistent basis smelled that landfill, if you're having any medical issues, make sure you tell your doctors that you were exposed, potentially exposed to sulfur compounds and benzenes. Now, there's a whole lot of other chemicals that have been coming out in that odor, in that smell, but those are the two that by today's standards, exceeded cancer risk and health risk. There's a lot of other chemicals that these folks living nearby who have been, repeatedly exposed to that odor have been exposed to, but those are the two that got flagged as definitely exceeding current safety standards.
Harvey Ferdman, thanks for all of your insight and your hard work. We'll talk to you down the road. Thanks, Harvey.
Okay, thanks.